forms. What are they? Why do we need them? How do we choose them? How do we use them? I'm Suzie. I'm going to talk all about forms. Let's get started. First of all, what are they? Forms are a piece of paper that sits under the nail. So for whatever you're building on top of it, whatever product you want to use, acrylic, hard gel, hybrid gel, anything, that product has somewhere to sit so you can lengthen, if that's what you choose to do, so you can lengthen the product out from the finger. It's a platform to build that product on. Then we remove it, and then you can work with it. You've got the nail that's lengthened. So that's what a form is. So the next question is, why do we need them? So why do we need a form? Well, depending on what you're doing or what you're looking for, you don't need to have a form. But I like a form because it's really the only way you can completely customize whatever product you're working with. Meaning if you're building a product, acrylic, hard gel, hybrid gel, if you're building it, it's really the only way you can super customize the nail. That's why I personally like a form, because I can shape it to the client's hand and custom design it right from the ground up. How we use it is we try to mold it to the finger that we're working with. And fingers vary in shapes and sizes, and it's hard to get them on. Some are easy. And again, that's a whole other learning angle, but we want to be able to fit this form onto our finger. So there's forms that are this is very stiff. And then there are forms that are more flimsy paper. So those are the kind of things you'll have to work with to get used to for you. But this is a metal form, and this is extremely rigid. And then there is a paper form, and it comes like this. And you want to perforate it. Almost always they're perforated. And you just separate it. So how we use them is, the idea behind it is, again, it's just that platform. You can pile that stuff on top. Then we get rid of this form. So the best way to use them is you can pinch the end. I don't want to get into how to apply forms in depth. I just want to cover the basics of it. Again, if the form is just a piece of paper or something to hold the product to cure, of course, the idea is how important it is. Well, it's crucially important to the outcome of the look of the nail. If you don't get your form right, that's why everybody's kind of like, oh, forms, pull my hair out. If you don't get your form right, it'll set the whole look of the nail completely off. If you get it right, it's beautiful. Okay, so what makes it right? You want to make sure that you are placing your form below. So let's turn this sideways. And this is just a side note why I love forms so much. I like forms because I place it under the nail. So when I build the product on top, it is an extension of the nail. A quick example, if you put tips on top, which could be considered type of a form. If you put tips, you glue it on top of the nail, and then you put the product on top of it, and it makes it sit a little higher. That's why I personally like forms, because it sits below the nail. I can build as if I'm extending this natural nail and pulling it out. I have the form that sits underneath. Okay, I don't want to get too deep into how do we place forms specifically, because I could talk hours for that. I just want to show you what the job of a form is. And you can see this is sitting below the fingernail. Let me just stick this down a little bit. And I'll show you with a few. So see how that form is sitting below the fingernail. So if I took this fingernail and tried to pull it right out, it would slide right on top of this form. And this would do the same. Let's show you the metal form. See that? So I'm going to just try to fit this on here. Let's try to do it straight up rather than sideways. Now, when I'm teaching, if a person can't get a form, which is very often, the forms are really weird. They're very foreign. Do you remember, Cameraman, the first time I learned how to do forms? I brought the whole roll home. It was a Sunday that I started, I believe. I brought the whole roll home from the shop that I was learning at. And Cameraman and I sat on the couch and I formed his fingers for probably like an hour or two. Do you remember that?
I remember something about that. Yeah.
You do? And I just formed and formed. I mean, he had no idea what I was doing, but and I can't say I got it, but I had a better understanding. Plus, I was only working with one shape of finger.
My finger, not good shape.
Well, and it's bigger than most, people that you're doing nails on as a general rule. So it was different, but I had to start somewhere, right? So it's just all in the angles, like riding a bike. It's just sort of once you get it, you're like, I get it. And then you get a new finger shape to try. So this is the paper one. This is the metal one. And I do find if someone's having trouble, I will pop this out and it can give them oh, okay, I see. It's it's very rigid. So sometimes forms, if the paper's not rigid enough, it can be very, like this, I love this form and I love this company, but it's a little bit thinner. So if you're experienced, you might like the more thinner. It's not as thick a paper. So you can see that this is very nice and it just nicely fits right underneath that little pinky. Sorry, I'm not going to do it sideways. I'm going to do it this way so I can see it. There you go. Beautiful. Goes on nicely. Look at that. Cute as a button. So it goes right on. So these are 3 different types of forms that are fitting quite perfectly. So it doesn't really matter which one you use. It's just whatever fits your style and whatever you're trying to do as well. Okay, and then there's another kind. You can get this super, super long one. This is if you're building a super long nail. Oops. Now, of course, what are all the lines and everything on that? Well, we get a little fancy with the lines and they can help, but it's not crucial. I mean, if it was a completely plain piece of paper, that would work too. Once you're aligning it, I mean, the lines can be helpful if you're so inclined to follow those kinds of guidelines. But honestly, you don't have to have that, but we all put them on there. Okay, so that's if you're doing your super, super long nail. They're all extremely different, but they're all doing the exact same thing. I could build a set of nails with all of these different forms, and they would all look the same, with the exception of this metal one. I'd have to really give it a good squeeze. It's very, very rigid. So it's harder to get that pinched look like the paper ones here are doing. So if I built the nail with this and took all the forms off, probably a discerning tech could tell that maybe I was using a different form for the ring figure than all the other ones. But other than that, and if I built it right, you might not be able to tell, but you could build the nail no matter what you're using. Hard gel, acrylic, hybrid gel, doesn't matter what you're putting on here. All these forms are doing the same job. And like I say, if I took them off, with the exception of maybe this one, they would all look exactly the same. So a form's job is, again, to hold that product for you while you build the nail out, and then you simply take it off and you throw them away. This one you might want to clean and reuse, and you just chuck them away. I just want to mention this. Some might consider the full coverage jelly tips a form as well, because you can use them on their own, or you can put product over top and strengthen them even further and use it as a form. So you could say that these tips are also used as a form, because let's face it, it is the shape of a nail. It is the form of a nail. How do we choose them? Okay, so when you are first learning especially, you want a bit of a thicker paper, I believe. It is great too, I find, with the hybrid gel because you're pressing down, so having a bit of a stronger paper is an advantage. That's why it's hard, because it's a piece of paper you're trying to shape and it's got a sticky back to it, so it can be really frustrating as you're learning. That's why this is great when you're first learning and you maybe just don't get it. It's very stiff. So there is this one you can start with. You can pick up these metal forms, as I showed in the beginning. You put them on and you squeeze the sides down. So you don't have as much leeway to shape this way or that way, like sideways. You don't have as much leeway that because of this metal bar here. So that's one way to start. Now here's some selection of forms. There's lots of great forms out there. I used to use this one all the time. It was one of my favorites. I love the stiffness of the paper and I love the length. I didn't really pay attention to the lines, but it's nice to have those there. And I also like the shape of the circle. This one is a little bit on the thinner side, so it's a little harder if you're first learning, but they're pretty great little forms as well. Like I say, all these are really good. These ones are long, so they will do a very, very long nail. And I find the paper on this I actually quite liked as well. And this is about the same kind of thickness, might be a little bit thicker. So when I designed mine, I made sure my paper was nice and strong to be able to help with those hybrid gel nails. And I also, I don't know if you noticed, but I made a very, very different shape. I don't think anybody's made a shape like that. And you can see, if I compare it to this one, it's basically the same. I just filled in the side holes and made it a circle. I didn't go super, super long because we don't normally on a regular basis do nails quite that long. I went for more of a little bit longer than this one, you might say. And this is more of a regular nail. You can even do very long nails with this one. And I just went a little bit longer so that if you really wanted to do another one or super long, you didn't have to buy long and short. So it's trying to all in one. So that's what you're looking for. You want a nice paper and you want a nice smooth finish so that it's easy release too. So you want to pinch the end, just a quick little lesson on putting them on, pop them on the finger. And again, I will do videos about this. And you want to squish it together, put your product on there, build the nail, and then literally when it's dry, take off the sides, pinch it, and throw it away. That's the great thing about forms. I love them. It's my favorite way to build a nails custom designing. Take a look. That's just a sample. If you'd like to see the full video where I build iridescent, like a deep dimension with just wrap from the gift store, from the dollar store, check it out.